Welcome to Shah's IAS Institute. Taking a look at current affairs for 26th October 2016, the first news item in the Hindu newspaper today is 61 killed as gunmen attack Quetta Police Training Center. So this is regarding the terrorist attack which took place in Quetta city, the capital of Balochistan province in Pakistan, which is a region of unrest. Even Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had recently pointed out about the demands of Balochi people, the atrocities committed here by the Pakistani government, the lack of development in this region. So this has been a region of attacks earlier too. Even in August 2016, there was a terrorist attack on a hospital in Quetta, which resulted in major fatalities. Even here, 61 people have been killed, more than 123 have been wounded, and all these are majorly new police recruits and police cadets. So the IS, Islamic State, claims responsibility for these attacks too. But Pakistani government says no, there is no presence of IS here. It says that most probably this is the work of a banned terrorist organization linked to Taliban and Al-Qaeda called Lashkar-e-Jhanvi. So the three suicide attackers who committed suicide, one was killed in the gunfire. Then the next news item is Supreme Court orders Mallya to disclose overseas assets in 4 weeks. So this is about the Vijay Mallya case, the Kingfisher Airlines, which went into losses, and there is a huge loan which Vijay Mallya had taken for Kingfisher Airlines. It has to repay around 9,000 crore rupees. There is a consortium of 13 banks which have been formed, majorly PSUs, led by even State Bank of India, which is working on this process of recovering the loan amount. So Vijay Mallya, we know, has fled. He is not in India. There have been demands in the Supreme Court too. He has been asked to give details about his assets. So when asked on giving details about his overseas assets too, he has submitted an affidavit saying that his wife and his children's assets overseas comprise of around 780 crore rupees. But then the SBI and this bank consortium have not been able to locate these assets and initiate any provisions for recovery. They say that we are not able to locate where are these assets and what are the values of these assets. So now Supreme Court has given 4 weeks time frame to Vijay Mallya to give complete details, not just state what are his assets, but even give complete details about their values, their location and everything. So that is the order here. Next is review no detention, give states discretion to hold exams. So this is CAPE, Central Advisory Board on Education, which is headed by HRD Minister Prakash Javadekar. They have recently held a meeting in which the idea to review no detention policy. The no detention policy under right to education, which means that no student should be detained, means should not be failed till standard 8th. So that has been the policy which has been adhered to for so long. Now they are talking of reviewing this policy because it is seen that in many states they have stated that the quality of education has gone down. And since there are no exams, nobody is going to fail, then the children's interest in the exam and that competitiveness and the incentive to study is no longer there. So there are demands to remove this no detention policy or at least introduce exams in some classes like class 6 and class 8 at least. So those have been the demands. Some speak in favor of it too. Some say that without the pressure on the child will be able to understand the learning process. It would be more on the outcome rather than just the output of the result. But then it has both sides can be debated. So now they are reviewing this no detention policy. No decision can be taken by CABE. It is just an advisory body. Final decision would be taken by the Union Cabinet only. So we'll hear more on this too later. Then the next news item is about 5 lakh TB patients contacted government clinics, still went untreated. So there have been many TB patients who go to government clinics for treatment, for even diagnosis, but then they have been detected with TB, but then they could not complete the process. Some have gone undiagnosed, means in the sense that they were suffering from TB but could not be diagnosed. Some who were diagnosed with TB also did not do the follow-up, so the clinics were not able to complete the TB program. So even such things result in spread of TB because it is a communicable disease. Tuberculosis, a bacterial disease, communicable disease, and it is generally seen that if proper medication is not taken, then it also results into drug resistance. So there are various types of TB too, multi-drug resistant TB, extremely drug resistant TB. So all this happens because of not taking the complete course. So even World Health Organization has recommended DOTS, directly observed treatment short course, for TB patients, in which the patient takes the medication or not is directly observed by these health centers and clinics. So that aspect is also implemented by in India, but still the lacuna and the loopholes have been detected by this study. Then the next news item is Delhi team touches base with separatists. So this is regarding the Kashmir unrest. It has crossed 109 days now. So a 5-member team from Delhi has gone ahead and are talking to the separatists in Kashmir, Mirwais Umar Farooq and Gilani, and they have said that we are not representing the government, but we have gone ahead to have a genuine discussion on understanding the demands of the Kashmiri people. So they have contacted them. What has come out now is that they demand that all those arrested during these protests should be released, the charges framed against them should be nullified, and a discussion on the issue of Kashmir should take place, in which all three parties should be there together. Means Kashmiris should be represented, the Indian government as well as Pakistani government all come together and bring out a solution for the Kashmir issue. So that is the demand of these leaders who were met. Then the next news item is Constitution Bench declines to go into Hindutva verdict. So this is regarding the recent Supreme Court case, which is looking into section 123(3) of Representation of People's Act, which is on corrupt electoral practices. So what practices are corrupt? So even instigating a population on the basis of religion and making them vote in favor of a particular religion is considered a corrupt electoral practice. But then the cases where religious leaders are called to address rallies, electoral rallies. So do they influence people to vote for a particular community, particular religion is questioned. So that is under the question, whether such practices come under section 123(3) or not. So that is the Supreme Court will pass its verdict on it. But then on the sidelines of it, a petition was also filed by activists like Teesta Setalvad, who said that in 1995 Supreme Court had given a verdict in which it was said that Hindutva or Hinduism is a way of life. So it is not just a religion, but the art, culture of the region is all imbibed in Hinduism and Hindutva. So somebody invoking Hindutva and Hinduism, it should not be confined to just the religion. So that aspect again, the activist says that is making BJP go ahead on the agenda of making Hindutva or Hinduism all across the continent. So that Supreme Court verdict should be reviewed is what they are demanding. But the Supreme Court has refused to look into the matter, and it says it will just look into section 123(3) matter only, whether it is a corrupt practice or not, invoking religious leaders and Hinduism on electoral rallies platforms. So that is the case. Then the next news item is workplace gender gaps persist. This is World Economic Forum. This is regarding the Global Gender Gap Report, which World Economic Forum releases every year. And in present Global Gender Gap Index, India is ranked 136 out of 144 countries, which is very low. This Global Gender Gap Index measures gender equality on 4 parameters: political empowerment, economic participation, health and education. In India, it has been seen in this present report that primary and secondary enrollment ratios have been very good, and the gender gap here is closing in now. But then on other parameters like health, India fares very poorly. The maternal mortality rates are also very high, and the health conditions of women are very poor. The next, on economic participation also, it is seen that there are barriers to women's participation in workplaces. There are also income disparities for women in workplaces. Even in political participation, India ranks low. So that is the Global Gender Gap Report, which is discussed here. The next news item is India up 1 position in World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking. So this is World Bank's Doing Business report, which is released every year, in which it provides Ease of Doing Business Index. In present index, India ranks 130 out of 190 countries. Earlier it was 131. The revised 2015 index had ranked India at 131. So now it is improvement of just one ranking. The government of India says that we have made in various efforts to ease doing business in India. Still it is not reflected in the World Bank report. The World Bank on its part has given details about India specifically also, and it says though India has taken up many initiatives and have taken efforts to ease doing business in the country, still other countries have also fared well. So on the basis of ranking, India has not improved significantly. So that is the news. And the last one is Doing Business Index, Center to hold meeting with 17 laggard states, union territories. So this is regarding again ease of doing business index, which we also measure for states in India, for all the 29 states and union territories. So in this also many states are faring well, many of them are faring poorly. Presently we have the 2015 index with us. Center is going to release soon in a few days the 2016 index. So we'll get this in news again too. But presently the center is talking of holding a meeting with 17 states, union territories which are lagging behind. So how they should be spurred into action to ensure ease of doing business. So these are the news items for today. We'll look at some of them in detail too now. The first news item about the attack in Quetta city in Pakistan. This is the map of Pakistan, the province. The Balochistan province lies here, where Quetta city lies. Gwadar port also lies here, which China is developing in Pakistan, which opens up into Arabian Sea. So this Balochistan has been a region of unrest in Pakistan for long now. This is the Sindh province. Karachi lies here. Punjab province, where Lahore, Rawalpindi, Islamabad, the capital, lie. Then this is FATA, federally administered tribal area, again infested by terrorists, and this is NWFP, Northwest Frontier Province region, also called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So Peshawar lies here. So this FATA and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are also close to Afghanistan, and terrorists also Afghanistan claims that terrorists attack in Afghanistan and go and take shelter here, and even Pakistan claims that terrorists from here, when they are targeted, go and take shelter in Afghanistan. So even Pakistan, Afghanistan have disputes on handling of terrorism and terrorists. Then the next news item about Vijay Mallya case. So the owner of Kingfisher Airlines, he says that Kingfisher Airlines went into losses and it was a bona fide business failure. He has around 9,000 crore rupees which he had taken from around 13 banks, majorly PSU banks. A 13 bank consortium now has been formed to recover the loans, which is led by State Bank of India. The Kingfisher Airlines in 2007, just 2 years into operation, acquired Air Deccan, which was a low budget airlines. So now a business class lavish airline, Kingfisher Airlines, been merged with Air Deccan. This was not managed properly. It took over many loans, gave high class facilities, but then it was not able to break even, repay the loans, and eventually Kingfisher Airlines went into complete losses. And then again the bankruptcy laws in India are also not very strong. So the assets have completely deteriorated. The employees were not paid. The assets could not be sold off and money recovered, and now banks are suffering. So he has been asked to repay the loan amount from his other businesses, which he refuses to. He has fled from the country to right now. He had been asked to give details about his overseas assets. So those details had been given just in writing. Now the complete details about where are these assets and their actual values are being demanded by the Supreme Court. So the case is presently going on. We'll see what happens. So this is about his loan amounts to which he took, which became unmanageable eventually. Then the next news item is about no detention policy. So this is about not failing any student till class 8, which is presently applicable under right to education, which is to be reviewed now. So these are the views of various states also. Some states talk in favor of it too. They say that it helps in building self-esteem of the child, and some say that it helps in removing the fear of failure and detention and the stigma associated with it. It is going against focusing on rote learning rather than imbibing learning. Then Karnataka also talks that a year-end evaluation, it says, should be there to ensure that the student's interest is sustained. Otherwise, it says this works just fine. Then Kerala talks against it. It says that there is no harm in allowing the student one more year to recope rather than allowing her to pass the next stage in an unbaked condition. When they are not prepared for the next stage, still they are not detained, rather promoted. It works against them. So Kerala says there is no harm in detention also, failure and repeating a term. Then Haryana also talks of some kind of test exam required for competitive spirit. Delhi government also says that it also results in undisciplined behavior and lack of any motivation to study. So those are the point of views of various states on both sides. So now let's see what CABE will decide about the no detention provision. There is also TSR Subramaniam committee which was set up, which recommended that the detention provision should be restored, and remedial coaching and 2 extra chances should be given to each student, so that if they still cope up, they can be promoted. Otherwise, they should be detained eventually. So that's the demand, a suggestion made. Then the next news item about TB patients. This we see revised National Tuberculosis Control Program is presently implemented in India, but still it is seen that around 2.7 million patients are left out of it. Means only 72% get the treatment facilities, 27% or so are missing patients. So they have been either treated with private sector, or some of them may have been lost also. They did not get the adequate treatment. So we don't really have the clear idea about this. So there is a need to implement TB program more stringently, because India has a major share of global TB also. So more than 20% of TB incidents all over the world is in India. So India tops there. So we need to take actions on this part. So the DOT strategy which we have in place to ensure that diagnosis takes place correctly, and even regular uninterrupted supply of medicines, anti-tuberculosis drugs are provided. So all these standardized recording, reporting are parts of the DOT scheme. Then we know about the drug resistant TB. There is multi-drug resistant TB, means the TB form is resistance to 2 most powerful of the first line drugs. And there is extensively drug resistant TB too, which is resistance to 2 most powerful anti-TB drugs of the first 4 lines against TB. So all new drugs resistance have also emerged. So that is extensively drug resistant TB also. So such cases have also been reported in India also. It was first seen in 2006, extensively drug resistant TB in South Africa. The reasons for these drug resistance is also that patients take incorrect prescriptions, they don't adhere to the prescribed dosages, they take poor quality drugs, or even erratic supply of drugs which they do not receive on time, results in drug resistant TB being developing. Then the next news item is about the 5-member team from Delhi meeting the separatists in Kashmir. This is led by former Union Minister and BJP leader Yashwant Sinha. Also former Chief Information Commissioner Wajahat Habibullah is part of this group. So they are talking to the separatists, Mr. Gilani and Mr. Mirwais Umar Farooq. So they have said that release all arrested people, and talking should be there with all 3 parties on the table, means India, Pakistan and Kashmiri leaders. So let's see what happens, and a positive development takes place and Kashmir issue can be effectively resolved through these initiatives too or not. But reaching out to the people has been initiated, though on non-governmental lines, yet steps have been taken. Then next is about the Constitution Bench, talking about section 123(3) of the Representation of Peoples Act 1951. They have refused to pass a judgment on reviewing the 1995 Supreme Court judgment on Hindutva, Hinduism, in which it was declared as a way of life and not just solely a religion. So this has been protested against, but then Supreme Court has declined to make a review on this. It will just talk about corrupt electoral practices and whether using religion on electoral platforms can be called a corrupt electoral practice or not. So this judgment will come. We'll hear more from this too. Then about the workplace gender gap persists. This is the World Economic Forum report. The global gender gap index is given out by it. India ranks 136 out of 144 countries. 4 parameters on which this index is decided, which is political empowerment, economic participation, health and education of women. India's improvement is only in primary and secondary enrollments of girls in education sector. So this is the ranking too. This is last year's ranking. Presently, we have improved 3 notches. We are at 136. World Economic Forum, for that matter, which releases this index, is a Switzerland non-profit foundation founded in 1971. It is giving this global competitiveness index. It provides global gender gap report. So all these indexes are given by it, and it is most famously known for its Davos summit, which is held annually in Davos in Switzerland. So it's an annual winter meeting in which it discusses various issues which face the world, but it is called a meeting of the top leaders without the common people taken into consideration. So there are protests also which take place at Davos every year too. Then the next news report is about India up 1 position in World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index. So this was released recently. This World Bank also develops doing business report every year and Ease of Doing Business Index since 2004. So India has also improved on 4 parameters. So it is getting electricity, paying taxes, trading across border and enforcing contracts. But still the ranking has not improved much. From 131 it has come to 130 only. So it also declares ease of doing business on the basis of 10 parameters. So these are the countries' rankings on ease of doing business. India ranks 130. The 10 parameters which it uses are these for ease of doing business: starting a business, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering property, getting credit, protecting investors, paying taxes, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and eventually resolving insolvency. So these are the measures. Then another provision which is there under World Bank index is distance to frontier. So this distance to frontier, it is said that India has improved on distance to frontier, but ranking has not improved much. So what is this distance to frontier? Is the distance that each economy has covered and reaching closer to the frontier. Frontier is the top position, the best, highest performance level which has been observed over the years over all the economies. So best performance, how far have we reached? Close to it. So distance to frontier of India has improved in many sections. Then next is doing business index of states. So here also Government of India says that 17 states, union territories are lagging behind. So reforms have to be brought in. The central government had given 340-point business reform action plan to all the states and union territories in October 2015. So now it will have a meeting talking about what steps have been taken by these governments to ensure implementation of all these provisions. Presently, top ranking states are Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So there are many states who are put under the best performing categories. Some are very low performing categories. So majorly northeastern states and Kerala also falls under low performing states. So this is last year's index. The government says that it is going to release this year's ease of doing business index for states very soon. So we'll hear about that too. So these are the provisions, also the criteria based on which this index is finalized. Earlier it was Gujarat which had the top score, but now Andhra, Telangana have overtaken it. So that is it for today from news. Thank you.